One of my absolute favorite things to have in the morning is a fluffy and moist omelet. Join me for the next few minutes and I'll show you exactly how I make these omelets and keep them nice and moist. My very first step is to always beat my 3 large eggs first and then move on to preparing the other ingredients. For a few years I would actually beat my eggs last after preparing all the other ingredients, but then discovered that I was doing things wrong. So why exactly was that the wrong way? Well, because you want to actually add salt right away to the beaten eggs and let that sit there for a while, and the salt does its magic by preventing tight bonding of the eggs during the heating process, which means more moisture. And we'll just set those there and let the salt do its thing. Now here I'm using a non-stick pan. This is actually a Ninja non-stick pan, so just adding a little bit of butter on there and slowly melting that at a low-medium temperature. And while that gently warms up, I'm going to gather my other ingredients. So we had tacos last night, so I'm going to use some leftover diced onions and some chopped tomatoes. Let's cut those up a bit smaller. Now we don't have any of our homemade summer sausage, so going with a summer sausage from the store. Just going to cube this up a little bit. Now today we unfortunately don't have any deli ham available, so I'm just going to go with a lunch meat ham, which it still works pretty good for me. And on a separate dish, I put my shredded cheese. Today it's sharp cheddar and mozzarella. Now I like to place that cheese right next to the pan so it's standing by for when I need it. Oh man, that sound is such a beautiful sound, having all the ingredients sizzling on that pan and having all those flavors blend together. I just like to make sure everything is evenly spread out here certainly, and just let these warm up until those onions become just a little bit softer and maybe a slightly brown. This is also a great time to add in some seasonings. I'm going to go with some pepper here. And here we are, just about 3 minutes later, not quite 3 minutes, but just starting to look good there. Looks good to me, so we're going to add in those eggs that have been sitting for the last about 10 minutes or so. I like to slowly circle those around the edges and let that fill into the center. I like to do it this way because you're spreading those eggs out over all of those flavorful juices, and it just spreads out that flavor throughout the whole omelet. And one important reminder here is that we still got that stovetop temperature just below medium on the stovetop. As I keep the video rolling here, you'll see I'll slowly go around the edges of the eggs, and as they start to solidify, I'll lift up those sides and let the liquefied eggs pour into those spots, and to help that process of coagulation. Generally, I just keep this process going continually until I have just a little bit of the liquefied eggs resting on top. And I'm going to speed this up to 5 times the speed here just so you can see the full process taking place. And certainly as I'm doing this process, I'm also taking the opportunity to make sure all the ingredients stay evenly dispersed. Alright, looking good. I'm going to bring us back down to our normal speed right here, and just so you can see where we're at. And now it's time for flipping this thing. And again here, just wanted to show you where this temperature was at on the stovetop the entire time, just below medium. I've always seen that I get better results using a lower temperature and taking my time. Now I'm going to tilt the pan up and let that liquefied egg have its turn to solidify. Now you can just actually flip the omelet over with your spatula. With the size of the omelet though, that can be a little bit tricky. So I just remove the pan from the stove top here and just make sure it's not sticking to the bottom of the pan. And just do a quick flick of the wrist upwards and then lower the pan quickly and let that land in there nice and squarely. Yeah, I'm not a pro, but that wasn't too bad. Alright, let's bring that back to the stove top here where we'll add our cheese that we have standing by. You want to evenly spread this out, and I like to use shredded cheese so it melts nice and quickly, but you don't want to use all your cheese. I like to save a little bit of the cheese to add on to the top of the omelet for that final touch. We'll put the rest of this aside. Now we're just going to grab that spatula here and we're going to fold this in half, and then that cheese can melt inside from the heat of the omelet itself. Alright, there we go. Now we'll let this side of the omelet cook just a tad more here. And then, once we're ready, we can flip it to the other side and finalize it there. Yeah, that's a good color. I like that there. Now we'll get the rest of that cheese and sprinkle that just right on top here, just like so. And yeah, maybe you should be a little bit more efficient here, Matt, and just, there you go. That looks a little bit more efficient. Now I'm going to grab the plate my daughter Grace made in her pottery class, and we're going to serve this up right away, and that cheese will continue to melt on top, which will be perfect. Alright, let's get a closer look at this beautiful omelet. Man, these are so tasty. I love making them and certainly love these for breakfast. Sometimes I have a little bit of a sweet tooth and I'll pour just a tiny touch of syrup inside right before I fold the omelet closed. And it's certainly always fun to try different combinations of various ingredients, and would love to hear your comments below to see what you like in your omelets. Oh, look at that moisture in that omelet. I'm gonna dig in. And here's another video from our family to yours that you can watch by clicking right here. Until next time, God bless.